The twin suns of planet Nerath 9 were slowly sinking behind the dusty hills, painting the sky in soft gold and pale blue. The wind carried the smell of metal, oil, and old machines. In the middle of this quiet chaos stood a small workshop made from ship parts and rusted steel plates. This was where Elias Wren, a human mechanic, lived and worked. Elias was known across the nearby colonies as the man who could fix anything: ships, drones, even ancient machines from forgotten worlds. He was not rich, but his hands were steady and his heart was kind. He never overcharged poor travelers and always offered water and shelter to lost wanderers. People trusted him. Still, he lived a lonely life. His only dream was to earn enough credits to return to Earth one day, to the blue planet he had not seen since his youth. One evening, Elias went to the trade bazaar at the edge of town. The bazaar was noisy and colorful, filled with creatures from dozens of species. There were glowing fruits from other planets, mechanical birds, and stalls that sold spare ship engines. Elias came here often to find cheap parts for his repairs. As he was searching through a pile of damaged metal panels, a harsh voice called out behind him. "You there, human? Looking for a helper?" Elias turned and saw a tall alien with green scales and sharp yellow eyes. He looked like a reptile walking on two legs, wearing a torn brown jacket. "I sell workers," the alien said proudly. "Strong ones, cheap," Elias frowned. He didn't like that word, sell. But before he could walk away, he noticed someone standing behind the merchant. It was a young alien girl, quiet and still. She had smooth, pale blue skin and long white hair tied in a simple braid. Her large silver eyes stared at the ground, and she held a small box close to her chest. There was something gentle and sad about her. "She's my stepdaughter," the merchant explained quickly when he saw Elias's gaze. "Can't hear. Deaf since birth. Useless, but I can't feed her anymore. You can take her cheap. She'll clean your workshop or hand you tools." Elias felt uncomfortable. "You want me to buy your daughter?" The alien shrugged. "She's not worth much. She doesn't speak, doesn't listen. I'm just trying to survive." Elias looked at the girl again. She did not react, but her eyes lifted for a second. For the briefest moment, she looked right at him. And in that look, Elias saw not emptiness but quiet intelligence, like she was testing whether he was cruel or kind. He sighed. He didn't believe in owning people, but he also couldn't leave her here with a man who saw her as useless. So he said, "I'll take her, but I'll sign her work contract, not buy her. She'll be free to leave anytime she wants." The merchant didn't care about details. He grinned, took the credits, and walked away without even saying goodbye to the girl. Elias turned to her gently. "What's your name?" he asked softly. She didn't answer, but after a few seconds she tapped the small box she held and pressed a button. A small light blinked on it and a robotic voice said, "Lyra." Elias smiled. "Lyra, that's a nice name. Come on, let's get out of here." They walked through the dusty streets toward his workshop. The evening air was cool and the stars began to appear. Lyra followed him quietly, her steps light, her silver eyes watching everything with quiet curiosity. When they reached the workshop, Elias opened the door and said kindly, "This is home for now. You can stay here safely." Lyra looked around. The place was full of old ship parts, engines, and glowing screens. She walked over to one of the broken drones and touched it gently, as if she could feel its memory through her fingers. Elias noticed how careful her hands were, not clumsy, not slow. She moved like someone who already understood machines. The next morning, Elias started working on a transport ship engine. He showed Lyra the tools, hoping she could learn by watching. To his surprise, she understood everything faster than he expected. When he picked up a wrench, she handed him the right size before he even asked. When a part fell, she caught it before it hit the ground. Elias smiled quietly to himself. Maybe she couldn't hear, but she certainly understood. Days passed, and Elias began to rely on her more and more. She cleaned parts, arranged tools, and even repaired simple machines on her own. Sometimes Elias would talk to her as he worked, even though he knew she couldn't hear him. He told her stories about Earth, the blue oceans, the green forests, and the sound of rain. Lyra would listen silently, her silver eyes bright and full of wonder. But soon Elias began noticing strange things. When the engine hummed, Lyra would turn her head toward it long before any human ear could catch the sound. When he tested a generator, she would raise her hand right before it sparked, as if she felt the energy inside it. It was not possible for a deaf person to react like that. It was as if she could sense sound without hearing it. One evening, while fixing a power coil, Elias accidentally dropped a metal piece. It clanged loudly against the floor and Lyra jumped. He froze. "You heard that, didn't you?" he asked softly. She looked away, pretending not to understand. Elias didn't press her, but his curiosity grew. That night after dinner, he decided to test something. He took out an old music player from Earth, a small device that still worked after all these years. It had a recording of ocean waves, a soft, peaceful sound that always reminded him of home. He placed it on the table and pressed play. The gentle sound of waves filled the workshop, slow, calm, endless. Lyra was sitting across the room, sorting tools. When she heard the sound, she froze. Slowly, she turned toward the player, her eyes wide. Her hands trembled slightly. She stood up and walked closer, almost in a trance. Elias watched silently as she touched the player, her fingertips resting on the speaker. Her lips parted as if she was breathing in the sound. Tears appeared in her eyes and rolled down her cheeks. She wasn't pretending now. Something inside her was awakening. Elias quietly turned off the player and said, "Lyra, you can hear this, can't you?" For a moment she didn't move. Then in a voice so soft he almost missed it, she whispered, "Yes, but not like you." Elias stared, surprised not only that she spoke, but that her voice was beautiful, calm, and clear. "Not like me?" he asked gently. She nodded. "I don't hear words, I hear feelings, vibrations, sounds inside energy. When machines live, I can feel their heart. When people talk, I can feel their kindness or anger. But if too many sounds come together, it hurts." Elias listened carefully. Her explanation made sense in a strange way. Maybe her people were not deaf at all, but tuned to a different kind of sound, one that humans couldn't sense. It wasn't a weakness, it was a gift. He smiled kindly and said, "You don't have to hide that anymore. You're safe here." She looked at him for a long moment. "Others didn't think it was safe," she whispered. "They said I was broken. My stepfather said people would fear me, so I pretended to be deaf." Elias's heart ached at her words. He understood what it felt like to be alone, misunderstood. He gently placed his hand on the table beside her. Not too close, just enough to show kindness. "Then maybe," he said softly, "it's time someone finally listened to you." Lyra's eyes softened. She nodded slowly, and for the first time a faint smile appeared on her face. It was small, shy, but full of light. From that night on, something changed between them. Lyra began to trust him. She stopped using the speaking box and started using her own voice, carefully, softly, as if rediscovering it. Elias taught her the names of tools, machines, and colors. She helped him repair engines with a new kind of precision, using her strange ability to detect the smallest flaws before they became problems. Elias realized that this girl was special, not just because of her hearing, but because she saw the world differently. Where others heard noise, she heard harmony. Where others saw junk, she saw living things waiting to wake up again. One evening, as they worked under the golden sunset, Elias looked at her and thought how strange fate was. He had gone to the bazaar to buy spare parts, and instead, he found a person who changed the rhythm of his quiet life. He didn't know it yet, but this was only the beginning of a story that would soon travel far beyond the dusty skies of Nereth 9. A story about trust, friendship, and the unseen power that connects all living things. The next few weeks brought quiet joy to the small workshop on Nereth 9. Elias and Lyra worked side by side every day. The once silent place was now full of gentle sounds, the hum of machines, the clink of tools, and sometimes the soft sound of Lyra's laughter. She was still shy, but each day she spoke a little more. Elias discovered that Lyra had an amazing gift. She could sense the smallest changes in a machine before anyone else noticed. When an engine was about to fail, she could feel its pulse become weak. When energy flowed unevenly, she would tilt her head and say softly, "It's not happy." At first, Elias smiled at her choice of words, but soon he realized she was right every time. With her help, his repair jobs became faster and more perfect. Word began to spread about the human mechanic and his quiet assistant, who could listen to broken machines. Soon, captains from faraway systems came to their shop. They didn't understand how the pair worked, but they knew that no one repaired ships better than them. One afternoon, while working on a large cargo ship, Elias noticed Lyra sitting by the engine with her eyes closed. Her hands rested on the metal surface and she seemed lost in deep thought. He didn't want to disturb her, but curiosity won. "What do you hear, Lyra?" he asked. She opened her eyes and smiled softly. "It's singing," she said. "The ship missed flying. It wants to go home." Elias chuckled quietly. "Machines singing? That's new." She looked at him, her expression calm but serious. "Everything that lives or has energy sings in its own way. You humans hear it with your ears. I hear it inside me." Elias nodded slowly. He didn't fully understand it, but he didn't need to. He had seen enough to know that what she said was true. Sometimes when she touched a damaged part, the lights around them flickered as if the machines themselves were responding to her. Life went on peacefully. They earned enough credits to fix the workshop's roof, buy better tools, and even add a small living room with soft chairs and a heater. In the evenings, Elias would cook simple meals, and Lyra would sit near the window, listening to the sounds of the desert wind outside. She often asked him about Earth, about trees, rain, and the sound of waves. Elias told her everything he remembered. He described green forests where wind moved through the leaves like whispers, rivers that glowed under the sun, and cities full of light. Lyra would close her eyes and imagine it all. "One day," she said softly, "I want to hear the sound of rain." Elias smiled. "Then I'll take you to Earth someday. You'll hear it for real." Their quiet world, however, didn't stay hidden forever. The success of their workshop caught the attention of people who only saw profit. One day, a shiny silver ship landed near the shop, smoother and cleaner than any Elias had seen before. A man in a neat gray suit stepped out, his shoes untouched by dust. He smiled, but it was the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Mr. Elias Wren," he said politely. "I'm from the Altair Corporation. I hear your workshop has achieved remarkable results. My company is interested in your methods." Elias wiped the grease from his hands. "We just fix machines the old-fashioned way," he replied calmly. The man's eyes flicked toward Lyra, who stood behind Elias. "Is that your assistant?" "We've heard she has unusual abilities." Elias's expression hardened. "She's my partner, not my assistant. And her abilities are her own business." The man smiled again, though his tone turned colder. "Altair Corporation rewards cooperation. We could offer you a lifetime contract, great pay, and access to advanced facilities. In exchange, we'll need to study how your partner does what she does." Lyra stepped back, fear flickering in her silver eyes. Elias moved slightly in front of her. "We're not interested," he said firmly. The man's smile vanished completely. "Think carefully, Mr. Wren. Opportunities like this don't come twice." "I already did," Elias replied, crossing his arms. The man stared at him for a few seconds, then nodded sharply. "Very well, but you might find business harder from now on." He turned and left, his boots leaving no trace in the dust. When the ship rose into the sky, Lyra whispered, "He wanted to take me." Elias nodded. "Yes, but he won't." That night the workshop was quiet. Lyra sat near the window again, watching the stars. "Why did you protect me?" she asked softly. "You could have been rich." Elias smiled faintly. "Because I don't fix machines for money. I fix them because I like bringing things back to life. And you're not a thing to sell or study. You're my friend." Her eyes shone softly in the dim light. "You humans, you fix what others throw away. Not just machines, but hearts too." Elias looked at her, surprised by the gentle truth in her words. "Maybe that's what being human means," he said. From then on, they became even closer. They worked like two parts of the same engine, one with skill, the other with feeling. They built new tools, designed better power coils, and even created a small device that could help Lyra control her resonance when strong sounds hurt her. Elias called it the tuner. When she wore it, she could listen longer without pain. Months passed, and their workshop became known as the House of Harmony. Travelers from across the stars came seeking their help. But no matter how busy they became, Elias and Lyra still found time to sit on the roof at sunset, watching the twin suns fade into darkness. One evening, as the stars began to appear, Elias noticed Lyra was unusually quiet. "Something on your mind?" he asked. She looked up at the night sky, her eyes reflecting the stars. "I hear something," she said softly. Elias tilted his head. "Hear what?" "The universe," she whispered. "It's not just machines that sing. The stars have a rhythm too. They call to each other across the dark. It's beautiful. Elias listened, though he couldn't hear what she heard. Still, her words filled him with peace. Maybe one day humans will learn to hear it too, he said. Lyra smiled gently. Maybe that's why I can hear it now, because I met someone who listens. They sat together in silence, each lost in thought. The sky above them was endless, filled with lights from faraway worlds. The next morning, a letter arrived through a drone messenger. It was from the Altair Corporation again, offering them one last chance. Double the money, full protection, and a ship to travel anywhere. Elias looked at the letter for a long time, then tore it in half. We already have everything we need, he said simply. Lyra smiled and nodded. Yes, freedom and friendship. That's enough. And so life went on. Their names became legend across the frontier. People spoke of the human mechanic who could fix anything, and the alien girl who could hear the song of stars. But to them, fame didn't matter. What mattered was the small world they had built together, one filled with kindness, understanding, and quiet harmony. One evening, a gentle rain began to fall on Nerath 9 for the first time in years. The dry air filled with the soft sound of water hitting the ground. Lyra stepped outside, eyes wide, hands open. She closed her eyes and listened when I really listened. Tears filled her eyes as she whispered, "It sounds just like you said." Elias smiled from the doorway. "Now you've heard the sound of rain." She turned toward him, her voice full of warmth. "And it's the most beautiful sound in the universe." They stood together in the soft silver rain, the mechanic and the resonant girl, listening to the quiet music of life. Far above them, the stars shone brighter, as if the whole galaxy was singing with them, a song not of machines or power, but of hope and the endless strength of the human heart. And in that moment, both of them understood something simple yet profound. Sometimes, the greatest sound of all is not made by voices or machines, but by two souls who finally understand each other.